Nisha Sane Karma Utta Vardanya Shri Bad Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Vajra Timo Nisha Sane Karma Utta Vardanya Shri Bad Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Vajradhar Sumatimo Nisha Sane Karma Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Dagi Jetson Lama Toje Je Nyamda Dala Toje Sikso So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Oyon Sunge Nawa Tsedo So Tseje Nyingne Sowa Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Veso Lekshone Yela Sambe Deden Malyopa Geme Hunge Drubra Jinge Lo Tsoni Sodan Dikten Shape Tse Dunge Namge Yinso Lekshone Lapchen Tsoni Yonso Chera Nidun Chanwara Jinge Lo Chancho Parge Ninsen Tukun To Nyu Peme Siodro Lekshone Chancho Drube Gegen Kunshi Shi Tungen Dela Drubra Jinge Lo Dage Lo Na Chela Chopa Chemin Samcharang Emba Shiwa Dan Chedan Tembe Deden Malupa Beme Lunge Drubra Jinge Lo Dorna Tingne Tsera Tamche Dan Techi Pardo Nega Tamche Tu Rese Kyamne Lama Keleme Tukche Chenge Dala Sikso Sol Gongyab Drewe Nyamta Dachala Chetsun Lame Tukche Rab Gomne Kudan Sumge Nawa Dralme Tu Nyamsu Nyongwe Kesan Tobra Sho Kiwa Kuntu Yanda Lama Dan Rame Cheki Pela Longche Chin Sadan Lamge Yun Dorje Change Koba Nyurto Visho Pakyuke Kodandaki Lo Pakyuke Sundandaki Pakyuke Mahamuni Sangye chodan soge chonam la chancho bhardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola penchre sangye drupa resho Sangye chodan soge chonam la chancho bhardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola penchre sangye drupa resho Sangye chodan soge chonam chancho bhardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola penchre sangye drupa resho. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Düche tamche, mitakpa, sakche tamche, dungalwa, she tamche, tongshin, dagmeba, nyangele debe, shiwo. All composed phenomena are impermanent. All that is impure is of the nature of suffering. All phenomena are of the nature of emptiness and lack an autonomous existence. Beyond suffering is peace. Yesterday, we have seen the first two of the four seals. And I would like just to make a short review of them, and then we go to the next. Okay. Going to the essence of the first seal, which is that all composed phenomena are impermanent. It comes down, we got actually to three important points yesterday. The first one was understanding how impermanent phenomena appear to us as if they were permanent, and how we grab at it like that, and we act in consequence. How actually impermanent phenomena are impermanent. And then we saw the gross level impermanence and the subtle impermanence. And we also saw why impermanent phenomena appear to us as being permanent. And then we also saw the fact that things change and transform because they interact within each other. And this is where also our own freedom lies to change things. One important thing that we saw yesterday, the first one, is that we really must recognize where is our own ignorance so that we can apply the antidote. Because if we make a metaphor, it's like if I take a bow and arrow, but I don't know where is the target, I can be a wonderful archer. But if I don't know where is the target, I will never get it. On the other side, if I know perfectly where is the target, but I don't know how to use the bow and arrow, I cannot get it also. So, knowing where is the target is recognizing the defilement, is recognizing the ignorance. Knowing how to use well the bow and arrow is developing the wisdom and then developing the antidote. So, when we talk about the ignorance, for instance, the ignorance of grasping at impermanent phenomena as if they were permanent, of seeing impermanent phenomena as if they were permanent, this ignorance, for instance, we should not understand it and grasp at it in a generalized way. Oh, that's what ignorance is. We need to see our own ignorance. That's the target. The target that we need to recognize is not ignorance in general, but our own ignorance. How do I grasp at phenomena that are impermanent as if they were permanent? That's the first important step. So there is an important part of observing one's own self. Okay? And here, there is one point which we didn't go through much yesterday, and I like just to add today, which is the fact that we need to understand clearly the difference between appearance and grasping at such appearance. Okay? So let's make some examples of this, because the first level that we need to develop is eliminating the grasping. Then the second is eliminating the appearance. For instance, if we take a dot of light, like an incense, and then we turn it around fast, what does it is? It appears to our eyes as if there was a circle of light. Is there truly a circle of life? Or of light, or it's just one point of light turning around quickly? We know it's a point of light that is turning around quickly, but it appears to us as if there was a circle. When we look from here to the other side of the lake, and we see small houses there, looks like we can take them and put in our pocket. Are the houses really that small as they appear? No. We know that, but they appear small. We can go on with many examples. So the best example, which I really like the most, is when we look at the mirror. In the morning, in the afternoon, anytime, okay? We go and we look at the mirror directly. What do we see? Our face, right? But it appears, but if we analyze it, truly what we are seeing is not our face. What we see is the reflection of our face. Okay? It can be odd enough, but no one of us have ever seen one's own face truly. You know? It's quite shocking somehow when we think about it, that we never saw our own face. The only thing that we have seen up to now is the reflection of our face. And imagine if all the mirrors we use were curved. You know? So, and this makes me to think also that the self-identity of people in the past, they used to be different because they didn't have so much reflection of their own image. We are obsessed with our own image nowadays. But if you think a few hundred years ago, it was not so common to have mirrors and pictures and all of that. No? Anyhow, that's another subject. The point is that when we look at a mirror, there is one thing that is the appearance. The image that we see, how does it appear? It appears as if we were seeing our face. It appears as being our face that we see in the mirror. And what do we do? What do we believe? Do we say, oh, look at that, it appears at my face, but actually it's nothing more than the reflection of the image of my face? Or we think, oh, look at my face. We believe in it. So what happens is that there is the appearance, and then there is the grasping at such appearance. Okay, and these are two different things. Okay, the appearance, it's real. The face on the mirror is fake. It doesn't exist. There is no face in the mirror. Okay? The appearance of the face in the mirror is real. But there is no face in the mirror. But we are not able to. It's like when we look to make the distinction, it's like when we look to the houses beyond the lake. The appearance of the houses small. Is it true? Yes. The appearances is true. They are, I see them there. But are the houses as small as they appear? No. So basically, we need to first of all make this distinction between appearance and grasping at the appearance. So impermanent phenomena appear to us as if they were permanent. And what do we do with that appearance? Normally, we grasp at it. So the first level that we need to develop is to understand that such appearance is illusory. So in the same way that I look at myself, one of the trainings that we can do, and this we will go just now on the third seal, we will connect to that example again, is we look in the mirror and we see, what do I see? My face. No, that's illusory. This is just the reflection of my face. Okay? And we can have many examples on that. But the point here now is, I see something, I see you today, I see you tomorrow, appears as being the same identical person, and I say, no, you have changed. But because I see you through the mental image that is permanent, you appear to me as if you are permanent, but actually you are not. And one of the exercises that come with that is that whenever there is something that have changed, that we perceive change, whenever we perceive change, whenever something that have started suddenly ends suddenly, nothing ends suddenly, but we perceive as such. Whenever something ends, whenever there is birth, later there will be death, whenever we perceive this manifestations of impermanence, we should not enter into victimizing ourselves. There is nothing wrong if something ends. There is nothing wrong when someone dies. The problem is our incapability of dealing with it in a healthy way. Okay? Sorry if I am so direct, but because impermanence is not a problem. Why? Because there is no solution. What doesn't have solution is not a problem, it's a fact. It's like if I say, the sun is rising from the east, but I would like so much the sun to rise one day from the east, one day from the south, one day from the west, one day from the north, then again from the east. It would be much more nice, actually. It would be really, actually I think it would be quite complicated for the trees and everything else, but anyhow. Let's say I would like it so much to be like this. Is it a problem that the sun is rising every day from the same side? Actually not. Why? Because there is no solution. So it's a fact. So remember that what doesn't have solution is not a problem, is a fact. The problem is my incapability to deal with it and to accept it. That's the problem, because it has solution. Impermanence is not a problem. My incapability of accepting and understanding and perceiving impermanence is a problem because it creates suffering and because it has solution. Okay? I think it's quite clear, right? So, on this, the first seal, the essence is, impermanent reality appears to us as if it was permanent, but actually it is not. First step, start dealing with the grasping at such appearance. We will never be able to stop the appearance at the first moment. That's a very high level of realization later. That's when we have truly, deeply realized the impermanence of phenomena. Okay? But until then, we should first start by dealing with the grasping. So it appears as, but we remember it is not. Okay? So this is the first training that we need to go through regarding the first sil. Okay? So this is just to come back to the point of yesterday. Traditionally, when the teachings are given, we repeat the same subject 3 times. First is given a longer explanation, then is given a shorter version, then the next day is given again a short version of that one. And also we are supposed actually in between one day and the other to think about what was said at least 3 times, to reflect upon that. Anyhow, now let's go to the next part. Okay. Regarding the second seal, which says, everything that is impure is of the nature of suffering. I'm going to try to make it now really short, to be really brief. But we have seen yesterday the 2 aspects, our own vision and then the vision that Buddha brings us. Starting with our own vision, basically we normally see and experience as if our own sensations, our own emotions, our inner state of mind, we live it as if this would be a result of the world that surrounds us. Okay? So again, we normally experience as if our own inner state, sensations, emotions, state of mind, as if this would be the result of the world in which we live. What Buddha explained is the other way around. The world in which we live, the way how it appears to us and how we relate to it, is the result of our own inner state, of our thoughts, of our emotions. So basically, it doesn't matter how much I change the world in which I live, if I do not change the way how I relate to this world, my own experience will not change. But we have the tendency to live within what I call a material utopia. The material utopia is where? The material utopia is basically where we strongly believe that it's possible to be truly happy only through a material development. By material development, I intend that the place where we are is in a certain way, the people that we are in a certain way, materially my body is in a certain way, economically and materially it's in a certain way. So in other words, we believe that if the world would be as I think it should be, then I would be happy. And by world, I mean everything that surrounds me. So, that's the utopia in which we live, which is an illusion. So on the second seal, Buddha says that's an illusion. It doesn't matter how hard we try to make things as we want them to be, if we do not change our own attitude, our own view, our own emotions, we will continue on the same cycles of suffering ourselves. Okay? And one thing that somehow makes me smile, I'm sorry, I don't want to be, offensive towards anyone, but I'm just sharing my own view. And it's not directed to any religion. It's directed to mostly to our common view. Okay? But what we commonly do, independent of what is explained into the religious teachings and so on of any religion, including Buddhism, is that we have the tendency to imagine a heaven, a pure land where we can be reborn, where what we do, we take all the material utopia that we have for this life and we project it on the next. So somehow, for many of us nowadays, if we need to rethink paradise, we will put fast connection of internet in it, you know? And we will think, okay, and it should be for free, without advertisement. You know? It's like what we do basically very often when we think about paradise is we take everything that we would like for this life, we take out everything that we don't like and we put it in a place together, you know. But the fact is that if we take, for instance, this world in which we live, and if it was not for the selfishness of human beings, nature by itself, does it provide us everything we need? Yes. Could it be a paradise? Yes. So what happens if we take the whole population of our country and we go to a pure land like Tushita? What happens to Tushita? After some time, at least the place where, you know, there is like the, how do you call it in English now? Like in a city you have different areas of a city. The neighborhood, we make a neighborhood of, you know, we take like few million people from here and we go all together to a pure land. We make a new neighborhood there. What would happen? Become like here after some time, because we don't change. So what's the concept of a pure land, just to make it clear? Like Tushita or others. The concept of a pure land is not a place where everything is beautiful and we get everything that we want. It's a place where most of the beings living there are beings, are people of love, compassion, of people with a high developed spiritual mind. Are people with a very high level of stability, of joy, of peace, and so on. That's what it means by a pure land. But it doesn't matter where I go if I do not change my own emotions and my own self, you know, it won't change that much. Sure, if I go to a place where most of the beings living there are pure, I will be influenced by it. That's wonderful. Okay? But the main point here is that the main objective is not that of being in a pure place. It's that of becoming a pure being. And once we become pure ourselves, it doesn't matter where we go, where we are, we live it in a peacefully joyful way. That's why samsara, the cycle of suffering, is within ourselves. It's not a place where we are. So basically, the second seal is telling us that. The second seal is telling us that samsara is not a place, samsara is a state of being. That there is no point in changing the world if we don't change the way how we relate to the world. And until the moment that we do not change our own negative emotions and our own wrong view of reality, we will continue to suffer. That's basically the essence that we have in the second seal. And bringing it down to a very practical level, what's the essence of it? Recognize internally what is harmful to me, recognize what is beneficial to myself, and then generate a strong commitment to abandon what is harmful and to cultivate what is beneficial from our own behavior, from our own actions of body, speech, and mind. That's how we start with it. Okay. Now we go to the third one. So, the next point, the third seal, says Chatam che tongshin dakmeba. All phenomena are empty
or are of the nature of emptiness. To be more precise in the translation, we say all phenomena are empty. Dagmeba, and lack self-existence, and lack an autonomous existence. Okay, this is something that truly, deeply is very simple, but because it's a concept that goes completely away from our normal paradigm, it needs a lot of time to explain. So let's start slowly with it. Again, here we need to see both sides. First, we see our common way of seeing it. First, we look at the ordinary way of perceiving. And then after, we go through the correct way in which Buddha explained it to us. So first, let's try to see from where we start with it. When we see each other, okay? When we look at each other, I see you, you see me, correctly? I look at a glass, I see a glass. I look outside, I see the trees. Without analyzing, basically, I see everything that appears around me, and when I'm looking at you, what I'm seeing you. Full stop. There's no much more about it. And what I see doesn't depend on me. You are there, I am here. I have nothing to do with you, you have nothing to do with me, in the sense that you did not depend on me, I did not depend on you to exist. When I see the tree is the tree, I am who I am, and one thing doesn't depend on the other. Okay? So our tendency is to perceive reality as if it existed independently of us. We are totally disconnected from everything. Okay? When we see things, they exist because that's how they are where they are. We are not seeing any connection between things normally. Okay? But the first step is observing that when I look at something, when I look at someone, that's what it is. It exists in an autonomous, independent way. That's our normal perception. Okay? I don't know if it's clear this way. One example, when I play a sound, can you listen to it? Yeah. Okay? That's just the sound that we listen. Now, without analyzing, we're all listening to the same sound, right? There's not one bell for each one of us playing. We're all listening to the same. But let's try to understand actually how that perception happens. Our perception of reality comes through 3 aspects plus 1, so a total of 4. The first one, it depends on what is called the sensory object. Then there is the sense that we call the sense object, the sense power, and the sense consciousness. And then we have the fourth one, which is discernment. Sense object, in this case, what is the sense object? The vibration in the air created when I hit with the stick the bell. Okay? Which is sound. The vibration in the air, the sound that arrives to my ears and that arrives to the ears of each one of you, is it the same or is it different? According to the distance, it's different. Is it similar? Yes. But by definition, anything that is similar is different. If it's similar, it's because it's different. Okay? So if we analyze clearly, I am very near to the bell, the sound arrives in a way. Who is in a different position arrives in a different way. So actually the sound waves that arrive to my ears are different than the sound waves that arrive to the ears of each one of you. Okay? So the object is different. The sense power, our own ear, physical, is it the same or is it different? We are all human beings, so they are similar. But because it's similar, by definition is different. The sense consciousness, the ear sense consciousness, the part of the mind which put together the vibrations that are perceived by the ear into our own perception. Is it the same or is it different? It's different. And then the discrimination or the discernment, the value that we attribute to that sound, the meaning that we give to it, the name that we give to it, the value that we attribute to it, is it different or is it the same? It's different. So how can we say that we are listening to the same sound? Without analyzing, yes, we are listening to the same sound. But if we stop to analyze, we will see that actually we are not listening to the same sound. Each one of us is having a unique experience. We are not able to perceive anything independently of our own selves. Ever. As I talk to you, what arrives to your ears? Sounds or words? We perceive as words, but actually are sounds. What do we do to these sounds? We attribute meaning to it. Okay? So, actually that's why verbal communication really doesn't work so well. Because normally, when I say something, what I mean is not what you listen. And it's not because it's me and you, it's anyone is like that. Okay? So basically, what happened is the fact that just in between, one thing that I do that really helps a lot is I try to remember myself that when someone talks to me, I don't know what the person is saying, I just know what I am understanding. So I took away as much as I can from my own vocabulary the phrase, you said. And I substituted with, I understood. What I understood is this, what you meant, I have no idea. It already makes a big difference in life if we are able to make this change. What I listened, and the problem is that not only what I understood, what I remember that I understood, because between what I listened at the time and then what I taught after and what someone else said, and then I and I mix all together, and after 1 week I don't know exactly what I understood. I know what I remember from what I understood. It's like our memories from childhood or any other moment of life, you know. We mix things together with our imagination and with our memories and with what other people said to us. We make a big mess about it. But anyhow, that's another subject. The point is that when we see something, what appears to our eyes? Objects, people, or forms, shapes and colors? Actually are shapes and colors that appears to our eyes, light. What we do to this shape and colors? We attribute meaning. Okay. So what happens is that we are totally incapable to perceive anything independently of our own selves. So what we see is a reflection of ourselves. But do we see it like this normally? When I look at the statue outside, do I have the perception, oh, look at this image that is appearing to my eyes, to which I attribute the meaning of the image of a Buddha, which for me is sacred because it represents my own potential to enlightenment? No, that's the statue, it is there, and nothing more. So reality appears to us as if it exists, independently of us as observers. This doesn't mean, although, that external reality doesn't exist. Huh? External reality does exist, but it doesn't exist independently of the internal reality of each one of us. Okay? I can make a few examples. Before that, there is right perception and wrong perception. What makes a perception and understanding to be right or wrong? If the value that I attribute to an object can be sustained by that object, then the perception is valid. If I attribute a value and the object is not able to sustain the characteristics and the functions that I attribute to it, then the perception is wrong. We have a lot of wrong perceptions. Huh? So, a friend of ours went for some time to the Amazon forest to work with some native people there, and she had a beautiful experience. But one thing which she told me was that one time she arrived in a tribe where they had almost no contact with our so-called modern civilization. And what happened was that one of the girls from there came to her and was very excited to show to her that she had something from our world, let's say. And she said, oh, you know, I got something from your world, it's very nice, but it was not working so well, so I made it better. And when she arrived there, there was an iron chair, remembering that these people, they don't use chairs. Actually, normally, they all sit around in the floor, but with the, I don't know how to say that in English. Squatting? No? With the knees up, down, squatting. And in a way that actually is very healthy, the way they sit. But they all sit like this, and they sleep in hammocks. So they don't have the concept of chair in their mind. They don't have the mental image of what is a chair. Okay? As we don't have a mental image of many things that they have. That's another aspect. You know? So what happened is that there was this chair, that for us is a chair, and this girl, what she did, said, it was not working so well, you know, this grill of yours. So she took out the seat from the chair, she just left the iron bars which were passing, and she put a fire under and the meat on top to make barbecue. So she was cooking the meat on her stove, on her grill. Was she wrong? No. Some of us may say, oh, look how ignorant she's using the chair to cook. No. Can it fulfill the functions and characteristics that she attributed? Yes. So for her, is there a chair? No. Or the other time she went to she had some native Indians, and they were in the supermarket, they were in Rio de Janeiro for the Olympics. And she said to one of some young guys, okay, let's go to have some ice cream today. And they looked at her and said, ice cream, what is that? Instead of explaining, she said, okay, let's go. I will show to you. So she went to the supermarket and bought some ice cream. And while she was paying, they were curious. So one of them opened the ice cream, put the hand inside, and started putting in his face like cream. Because it was very, very hot, and he felt very nice and cool, you know. Did it fulfill the functions that he attributed to it? Yes, it was working to cool down. Fine, you know. So the point is that reality doesn't exist for us independent of the value that we attribute. Okay? But we are not aware of that in our daily life. So what's the problem? Not being aware of that, we think that the value that we attribute is the actual reality. So what happens when I meet someone that attributes a different value than the one that I attribute? He's wrong. In other words, making it simple, we live in a reality that is subjective. We live in a subjective reality, in the sense that we are totally incapable of perceiving anything independently of our own selves. Okay? And as we saw before with the example of the sound, what I listen and what anyone else listens is different. What I see and what anyone else sees is different. because we are totally incapable of seeing or perceiving anything independently of our own selves, of our own senses, of our own mental projections, and so on. What I perceive is the reflection also of the culture in which I grew up, the experience in which I had, the education that I received, and everything else put together, and my body and all together. Okay? So, we live in a reality that is subjective. But how does that subjective reality appears to us without analyzing? Does it appear as being subjective? When I see something, do we perceive it as, oh, look how it appears to me? Normally, how do we perceive things? Oh, look, this is my perception. Oh, look, that's the value that I attribute it. Or the subjective reality appears as if it was objective. How does it appear to us? As if it was objective. So basically, the subjective reality appears to us as if it was objective. And what we do to that objective appearance of the subjective reality? We believe in it. We grasp at it. And we act in accordance. Just as it happened before with permanence and impermanence. Same procedure. Same process. It's impermanent, but it appears as being permanent. We grasp at it and we follow it. We act in accordance. So we live in a subjective reality that appears to us as if it was objective. We believe in it, we grasp at it as being objective, and we relate to it as if it was objective. And this creates a lot of trouble. Okay, so, in other words, at the same instant, at the same moment, at each and every object, at each and every situation, how many possibilities are there? For example, this object here. We call it a singing ball, okay? Bell. How many things could it be right now? Yeah, it could be a salad bowl. It could be a weapon to hit someone. It could be a stool where I could sit on it. It could be like, how many possibilities are there? Countless. I'm not going to say infinite, but countless possibilities are here for it right now. Okay? And like this is for everything else. Okay? Everything that exists. At the same right instant, there are countless possibilities for it. What do we do as observers? We choose one from the countless possibilities, and sometimes we choose something that is not a possibility, which is a wrong perception. But let's talk about the right ones at least. From countless possibilities, we choose one. But are we aware that we have been choosing one of countless possibilities? Or we think that the possibility that we chose is the actual only possibility, is the actual reality? That's what we do. Our normal tendency is that we choose one from countless possibilities, and we think that that's the that's the actual reality. And when someone else chooses a different possibility, he's wrong. Or I am wrong. Okay. So, the first point here is aware that we live in a reality that is subjective. But even though it is subjective, then after we will learn how to hit that target. But first we need to find it. First we need to see the target. And the target is the fact that subjective reality, interdependent reality, appears to us as if it was objective, autonomous, independent of the observer. And we believe in it, we grasp at it, and we relate to it as if it was such. We are not aware in our daily life that what I see are just forms and colors to which I attribute meaning. We are not aware that when I see you, I'm actually seeing you, but I'm also seeing a reflection of myself. Are we aware of that normally? No. Okay? So that's our view. That we live in a reality that each and everything exists out of its own characteristics, in which I exist independently. And if we go a little bit deeper, we'll say I have my own interpretation of reality, but reality is there and I am here. That's our way of seeing. Okay? The way how Buddha explained goes a little bit beyond that, a lot beyond actually. It's the other side, in which it says, external reality does exist, but it doesn't exist independently of internal reality. Internal reality and external reality is like here and there, big and small. It's like this and that. Okay? Which means it's mutual dependent. To make more clear, we take two chairs. In Tibet they used to give the example two mountains, okay? But let's take two chairs. We put one chair at each side of the room, or even near, even in front of each other. It doesn't make much difference. I sit in one chair. This chair has become this chair, and the other chair is that chair. Then I stand up from this chair and I sit on that chair. What that chair has become? This chair, and this chair has become that chair. This and that doesn't exist one independently from the other. The same thing happens with big and small. What is big? If we cannot compare it to something smaller or something bigger. What is small? One doesn't exist independently of the other. What is long and what is short? This is the relativity of space, relativity of time. Okay? But we are not aware of all of this. We see things as if they were by themselves big, by themselves small, by themselves in a way or another. When actually all of this is like that because of the reflection of our own perception and our own projection. So, nothing exists independently of our own perception for our own selves. Nothing exists for me independently of my own self. I don't know if this is clear. This is a very important step. Okay? Then we will go to the next part. So this, at least here we got one important part in which we arrived. Before entering into the part of the antidote, I like still to put some emphasis into understanding where is the target, understanding the part of, let's call ignorance, of our own wrong perception. Okay? So what happens is the following. We have seen that external reality exists, but it doesn't exist independently of internal reality. We see that we live in a reality that is relative, subjective. But even though it is subjective, it appears to us as if it was objective. Even though it is relative, it appears to us as if it was absolute. So it's like here and there. Here doesn't exist independently of there. There doesn't exist independently of here. Big and small, short and long, and so on. And one other aspect which is connected to this, which helps us maybe to open our mind, hopefully not to confuse more, but to open our mind, is the relativity of time and space. I don't know from the point of view from physics and so on, but I just tell two of my reflections, okay? One of them I got one day observing my own nail. So I would come up from that example. If we look at our nail, is it big or small? Depends. But generally speaking, comparing to all the other things that we see, it is something small, right? So we have here our very little tiny nail. Then we start to observe and we think, how much can we expand the space outwards? How much can we expand outwards in space? Endless, right? Infinite. We can go to meters, to kilometers. I can expand it infinitely. Correct? Now, I will use a word that doesn't exist, but it helps to understand. How much can I inspand? If I start dividing and dividing and dividing and dividing and going into the nail more and more deeply into it, okay, I arrive at the atom, the cell, then I go to the atom, then I go to the nucleus of the atom, and I start going and dividing more and more and more and more and more. How much can I go? Infinite. So where there is more space, outside my nail or inside my nail? Which infinite is bigger? They are the same. There is no difference. Okay? But it's quite shocking to think that the space that is outside my nail and the space that is inside my nail, there is no one bigger than the other. There is as much space out as there is in. It's quite shocking when we really think about it, because we go completely out of our common paradigm. Time. If I take 1 hour and I expand that hour from hour to day to week to month to years to centuries to thousands of years, and like this we can expand it. How much can we expand? Infinite, right? And if we divide the time, from an hour we bring down to minutes, from minutes we bring down to seconds, from seconds we bring down to milliseconds, and like this we can go on and on and on and on. How much can we divide it? Infinitely. So where is there more time? In a second, or in a minute, or in an hour? So somehow we could say that we can find two moments of some sort of danger. One time was really danger. A big trunk of a, big part of a tree was falling in my head. And the other time I was making a ceremony and the object of the ceremony fell from my hand and when it was going to the fire, and this is something that normally shouldn't happen. And on both times, what happened is that suddenly time stopped and became in slow motion. I had a perception, my normal perception of time, but I could see everything happening around me like in slow motion. And like in the time of this object, which is the dorje, and it fell from my hand, everything else was like out of focus, and there was only in focus the object and the fire, and I could see it flying in front of me slowly, and all the sounds were like whoa, like really slow motion. And my perception was that, so I had the time to say, oh, it went out from my hand. There it is. I must catch it. I put my hand in that direction. I had the time to calculate and to look at it and to think about all. And then when I chose to take it, time went back to normal. And then suddenly everything was like normal again. And the other time I was sitting under a tree and suddenly I started listening to the sound, kra, 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 very slow. And then I had the understanding, something is breaking above me. Better I jump out from here. Where do I jump? In which direction I go? How do I do? I had all the time necessary to think and to analyze and to observe and to understand. And then suddenly when I decide to jump, and I jumped, then it fell down exactly where I was. Well, quite big treat. And these two experiences, for me, the most special thing of them was this strong physical perception of the relativity of time. where what maybe was 2 seconds, for me it looked like 1 minute, 2 minutes. So time is relative. I have personally no doubt of it. But same as time, everything else is relative. Small and big, short and long. But not only that, if this is a bell or if this is a bench or what, it's relative. Okay? So, the fact is that we live in a relative reality, but still it appears to us as if it was absolute, as if it was objective. So is with time, so is with everything else. So if we really start analyzing what are things, let's take, for example, make 2 examples. Before I did the flower, but actually if we talk about the book, it's more easy to understand. Okay? Let's take, for example, the book. Which are the parts that compose a book? Cover, pages, paper, ink, letters, paragraphs, chapters, titles. Right? These are the parts that somehow compose a book. Now, if I put all these parts together, do I necessarily have a book? Or I can have just something to burn because I'm cold in winter. No? It depends what's the value that I attribute to it. Going directly to the point, what is a book? If we really analyze it, where is the book? What is a book? We cannot find a book anywhere else other than in the name, book, the concept, the mental image, attributed to a unity of parts. So these parts put together under the name book, that's where a book is. The book doesn't exist independently of the name book, otherwise it's a bunch of pages put together. What makes it a book and not many pages together? A concept, a name. Okay. Another example which I didn't give in Italian, so I remember to say it after. What makes a group to be a group? We take many people together and we make a group out of those people. What makes it to be a group? If we put people together that they have the same objective, does this make them as a book, as a group? Does this make a group out of them? No. We can have many people in the subway, they all want to go the same direction. Does this make them a group? No. Okay? We all have the same intention to be happy. Does this make us a group? No. Okay. So, what makes a group to be a group? It's not the fact that they are together in the same place. It's not the fact that they have the same objective. It's not the fact that they want the same thing. It's one very simple thing that makes a group a group. The name, group. In the moment that people say, we take 5 people together and we say we are a group, then the group has been created. We don't need anything else to have a group. And without this simple fact of naming the group, of attributing the value, the group will never exist. Names are very powerful. Okay? So, nothing exists for us independently of the value that we attribute. And that's the relativity of phenomena. The relativity is that nothing exists by its own characteristics. Nothing exists by its own self as it appears to us. Whenever I see you, yes, I'm seeing you, but at the same time, I am seeing a reflection of myself. Because everything that I see reflects the education I received, the experiences I had, my own mentality, my own body. So basically, we have the tendency to live in the duality between inside and outside, me and you. Mind and body, that's another subject. But the duality between mind and body is not so clear, truly speaking. Body and mind are always together in a gross, subtle, and very subtle level. But that's another subject. Here, external reality and internal reality truly are non-dual, but we live it with duality. We experience that what I see is totally independently autonomous from me. And I am independent and autonomous from the rest. Is this clear for us? Can we get it, right? So that's a very important step for us to do. Because with this we can understand better what's our ignorance. Because the ignorance that is the root of all suffering, according to Buddha, better, according to my understanding of what Buddha said, or better, according to my understanding of what my teachers told me, that was what Buddha said. Okay? Because I don't remember listening to Buddha, I don't know if I was there. But the fact is that, according to Buddhist teachings, or better, my understanding of Buddhist teachings, the root of all suffering is the ignorance of grasping at subjective reality as if it was objective. Of grasping at relative reality as if it was absolute. So we grasp at reality appears to us, and we grasp at it as if it is autonomous, independent, inherently existent by its own characteristics. As if we had nothing to do with it. That's our ignorance. Okay? Is it clear? Okay. Now, we have 2 steps to go. Maybe we will do one small part now, then we do the rest in the afternoon. The steps are, first, understanding how come, why, try to understand a little bit the mechanism of how this ignorance is creating suffering. And second part, how to deal with it. What's the antidote? Okay? Well. And the good thing is that the antidote then is connected to the 4th seal. So then we will reconnect the 2 things later. I would try to explain the mechanism. Then we can understand how come this ignorance generates suffering. When we listen to sound, okay? We listen to a specific sound. What happens? What the mechanism that happens within us? Here there is what we call contact, discrimination, and the result is sensation. Contact is made by sense object, sound, vibration in the air, sense power, our own ear, sense consciousness, the part of our mind which perceives the sound, and the value that we attribute, which we call discernment, okay, or discrimination, the value that we attribute to it. Inevitably, whenever there is contact, and when it sums up with discrimination, there will be sensation. Whenever there is contact, there will be sensation. But very often, most of the times, it is summed together with the discrimination, with the value attributed to it. So, the sound arrives to my ears, the brain perceives the sound, I give a value to it conceptually, and I have a sensation. Can be a sensation of pleasure, pleasant sensation, an unpleasant sensation, suffering, or a neutral sensation. Clear? Then the sound finishes. If it was a pleasant sound, what is the reaction that we generate? Attraction, aversion, or indifference? Towards a pleasant sound? Attraction. Towards an unpleasant sound? Aversion. Towards a neutral sound? Indifference. Okay? So, what happened is that in the moment that I listen to a nice sound, what I generate towards that sound that gave me a sensation of pleasure? Attraction. This attraction generates desire, attachment. Okay? Insatisfaction, because I should have this sound and I don't have it enough. Okay? And then what happens when instead we generate we listen to an unpleasant sound? For instance, let's make this sound. Okay? As we listen to the sound, for someone may be pleasant, I don't like it really. But as we listen to the sound and we generate an unpleasant sensation, what is our reaction? Attraction, aversion, or indifference? So what we want? The sound to stop. So if I continue, someone may get angry. And someone says, stop that, what are you doing? And we may get violent. Okay? So what happened is the following. And what if I don't want to feel that sensation, that unpleasant sensation again? So what I want? Avoid that sound. So don't touch the microphone. And instead, if I want to have the nice feeling again, what I want? To listen to the bell ringing again. Okay? So basically, we connect our sensations to the objects through which they arise. What we really want is not the object. What we truly want is the sensation. Our real attachment is not to the object, it's to the sensation. So I want that because I believe that through that object I will have again a sensation of pleasure. I want to avoid that because I believe that by avoiding that I would avoid a sensation of suffering. It's clear, right? When we stop to analyze it, the sensation of pleasure that comes as I ring the bell is created by how many parts? Sense object, sense power, sense consciousness, and discernment. The value attributed to it. Okay? How many of these parts depend on me? How many of these parts depend on something that is outside of myself? One is outside. All the other are inside. The body, the consciousness, the value attributed to it. Are we aware of this normally? No. Normally we attribute it only to one part, which is the object. And we are not aware of the whole thing. And where most of the times, the one that gives the strongest weight on the sensation is the discernment, is the value attributed to it. Did we ever experience a very similar situation or a very similar object in one moment gives us pleasure, in another moment gives us suffering? Yes. And the other way around also. Before I didn't like, now I like. So basically what happens is that because we create this relationship with the objects where we don't see the interdependence between us as observers attributing value, we don't see us as our own senses perceiving it. What happens is that we create a dependence with the object. Because we see ourselves as being independent, finally we become dependent. So I want more pleasure, I need to get the objects that I connect with pleasure. I want to avoid suffering, I need to avoid the objects that I connect with suffering. And that's how we live our lives. And what happens out of this wanting to get what makes me happy and avoiding what makes me suffering? We develop anger, jealousy, fear, miserliness, and so on. But what is all in the basis? Attraction to pleasure, aversion to unpleasure, to suffering. And because we don't understand the whole process of the interdependence of how the sensations of pleasure and sufferings are generated, we connect it only with the objects. So this is one part of the game, but an important one. Okay? So, another example. When we feel anger, we suffer because of anger. It's one of the causes of our suffering. But when we feel anger, the object of anger, how does it appear to us? As being inherently existent as an object of anger? Existing as an object of anger by its own self and its own characteristics? Or That's many parts put together, and I have attributed that value to it. It's by itself like that. One time I was talking to a friend that was very angry towards someone. And I said, but look, and this person asked me, but how do I apply emptiness into it? And I was saying, look, the object of anger, the person, the value that you are attributing to that person as an object of anger, is it correct or not? Can the person sustain the functions and characteristics that you are attributing as an object of anger? Most probably yes. So it's a correct perception. But is it the only perception possible? Is it the only possibility? No. How many other possibilities are there? Correct ones? Countless. For instance, it can be an object of compassion. It can be an opportunity to learn patience. It can truly be so many different things. And the question which was made to me about which is the right one and which is the wrong one. There is no right and wrong in this case. There is only right and wrong if the object is able to sustain and to fulfill the characteristics and functions. That's the only distinction of right and wrong. But when I take two different perceptions, one is an object of anger, the other one is an object of compassion, the only difference is the value that I attribute to it. And the question is not which is the right and which is the wrong. The question is which one fits better for me, which one helps me and which one harms me. Because finally, what do I want? Have anger or compassion? That's the main issue, you know. So the point is that there are countless possibilities and we have the freedom to choose the way how we relate to reality. That's the real thing. Because in the moment that I choose, then I have this freedom and then I can be well with all the situations because I can choose a healthy way how to relate to each one of the situations. That's what is a Buddha. Okay? But the point now here is understanding that suffering is coming from defilements and actions. And this is coming from attraction and aversion. That is coming basically from selfishness, which is coming from the ignorance of seeing ourselves as being completely disconnected from everything else. So in other words, I am here, everything else is there. Everything exists independently of me in an autonomous, inherently independent way. I exist completely independently from everything else. And because of this, I become the focus of everything. I end up obsessed with myself. And I see everything around me in the function of myself. It's interesting because I see myself independently of everything, I ended up becoming the focus of everything. And everything exists in relation to my pleasure and my suffering. That's selfishness. And we act out of it. And we are constantly trying to avoid what makes us suffer, to avoid what we believe that will make us happy. And we are constantly into this game of attraction and aversion, and we suffer because of it. So the main cause of suffering is selfishness. It manifests through anger, jealousy, pride, fear, and so on. But the root is the ignorance through which we grasp at reality as if it was independent, autonomous, in two levels, grasping at ourselves being independent from the rest and the rest being independent of us. That's the base. So all phenomena are empty of inherent existence. If we make more detailed, all phenomena lack inherent existence, are empty of inherent existence, and are free of being autonomously existent. And don't exist by their own characteristics, by their own self. In other words, we live in a total interdependent reality. Okay. This is a very deep subject. It takes many times to listen and to reflect upon it. It's not easy, but because it's not easy, I like to approach it very often because we need time to understand it. Okay? And now in the afternoon, we will go to the part which refers instead to the antidote, understanding the antidote and how to apply that. Okay? So we stop here now for lunch. Jetsun lame kutse raften chi namkar chinle losan tempe drame taktu ne gyur nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek Ninsen takto delek pe koncho sumke jinge lo koncho sumke modruk sol koncho sumke trashisho. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path with many signs of auspiciousness. Om Ahum Tembala me Sangye Rinpoche, Kyabala me Tamcho Rinpoche, Drimbala me Gendo Rinpoche, Kyam me Kuncho Sumla Chopa. Okay, we come back around 3:15.
Thank you.
Okay.